We put it in a vertical antenna. Up to that time, the antennas had been flat tops. We put in 1,000 volts of batteries for the power supply. We got away from any noise from generators, anything like that. They're Willard batteries. They weren't the car batteries, they were the smaller batteries. But it's a big headache charging those batteries all the time. You had to keep at them. But they sure were a good power supply. The cows, the first night we put the counterpoise up. The counterpoise is a kind of a second antenna, which is about 5 or 6 feet off the ground. Looks just like the antenna. The cows got into it and tangled it up. That happened a couple of nights, and we had problems there. We had lots of problems, believe me. Reed opened up in the old Portland Hotel. The studio was in the Portland Hotel. And also it was the first remote control station around, entirely controlled from the Portland Hotel. But we had trouble with the quality. The speech wasn't too good. We always had that. Looking back, of course, I know what our problems were, but in those days we weren't sure. Reed was the most resourceful radio engineer around. The fellow was always coming up with something. His competitors hated him, and he didn't have any respect for the competitors neither. I think it's probably on account of his telephone experience in Seattle that maybe he was that way. But he took every chance he could get to prod him a little bit, let him know he was around. But the station never got popular. He fought pretty hard, but the Oregonian was too much for him. He had very limited capital, and he just couldn't put the thing over, so we never got popular. One thing about him, he always paid his help, which is more than some of the others did. We used a script. Maybe Sam the Tailor would give a coat or something for time on the air. That was given to an operator instead of the pay, of course. Or a sack of spuds, or a chunk of cheese, or anything like that was taken in as trade. And that's the way Reed operated.
Is that for advertising, you mean? To pay for advertising?
Take a place of money when they paid for their advertising on the air, the spots and so on. I think others did that too, I don't remember. I know times are real tough. In Hood River, times were tough too. There was a while there that we couldn't sell radios. And a fellow came into the shop one day, he lived up at Mount Hood, up in the upper part of the valley. He wanted a job selling radios. Well, the boss wasn't too hot about putting salesmen out. He'd go out at night once in a while himself, demonstrate a radio, but he didn't have any salesmen. He said, no, I said, we can't sell radios now. The fellow says, oh yes, I think I can sell them. He said, he coaxed, he said, please let me try to sell one. He said, the kids haven't got any milk. This is a true story. I was right there and heard it. So the boss finally said, okay, he said, you can take an Atwater kid out this afternoon. Then he'd come in the morning and he laid the cash on the counter for the radio. Well, of course, we were all greatly surprised. We couldn't figure out what was going on. Didn't expect anything like that. So he says, I want another one. He took that out. The following morning, he came in and laid the cash on the counter. That happened 3 times. We found out what was going on. He was going up there in the upper valley. In the daytime, he'd go to these Japanese farms and he'd put up an antenna. And at night, late at night, he'd go back, hook the Atwater kid up and play Japan. There was, I think, 6 stations on the air we could hear those days in Japan. Now that's a salesman. He later went into selling Majestics on his own. But the thing that might surprise you, as hard as this man was up, lost my train of thought there. He came one morning to work and he had a fish spinner he'd hammered out of copper. And he says, I'm going to sell these. And I said, you can't sell those. I said, there's big tackle companies in business selling good spinners. Oh, I says, I think I can. See, I didn't doubt him too much then because he was so insistent and he'd already showed us how to sell radios. So Lure Jensen went on to build one of the biggest fishing type factories in the world. I think most of you have heard of Lure Jensen, Lure. That's the way Lure Jensen started.
Was that him?
Beg your pardon?
Was that the fellow that sold the radios? Is that
Yes, that's him. So, of course, that's happened to me lots of times. I never could stay with one job. I always jumped around from one to another. I didn't stay in broadcasting very long either. I went into talking pictures, I think it was. But I missed the boat so many times. We probably all have. But Tektronix, you know, they started down there with the Hawthorne Bridge, and I told them they were nuts too.
You know, can I interrupt just one thing too, to talk about Tektronix? I used to deliver papers in Selwood, and Larry Ballin, that was Howard's brother, he was a paper route carrier, and so I used to go visit, you know, with Larry, and Howard Ballin had his shop in the garage then, as over in Lambert Street.
Well, one of my relations became a millionaire at the start with Tektronix. But, well, the same thing happened with Jim Larson. He asked me to go to work for him. He said, oh, I said, you can't sell antennas. You're nuts. You know, the big companies sell antenna specialists and everybody back there. Well, I said, I can sell them all right. Well, look what Jim Larson did. I told him he was nuts too. That's the story of my life. Well, I was saying KQP never went over very well, so he sold it to the Portland News, Oregon's independent newspaper. They changed it, called it KOIN. That became, too, one of my favorite stations. KOIN was a wonderful broadcast station. And I claim the dubious distinction of driven the first nail, and it was born in a chicken house. Well, Reed didn't stay inactive very long. He was a pretty sharp guy in some ways, not too good a businessman, but he started building another transmitter. In fact, he built another transmitter, and he put it, see, which hotel was it? The Bedell, I think. Let's call it the Bedell building. I should have that in my notes. I don't want to put false information into these speakers and microphones. Oh, I can't miss this. When his mail arrived from Washington, D.C., a letter from the Department of Commerce granting his license, he opened it up and looked at it. He says, KXL, isn't that pretty? And that's the start of KXL. And right there. He had some very, very unique ways of getting programs into the place. Maybe some of you heard about the sewer line. He had a real good deal there in the Sherman Clay store if he could get his lines in there. The competition thought they had him blocked off. So Reed gets up in the night, he gets up at the daytime, he goes to the building, the city building where they keep the blueprints for the sewers. He studied the sewers and he found out that sewer line came out of Sherman Clay's out here. And a sewer line came from the Bedell building where he had his station and came together down here in the manhole. So he goes down there in the middle of the night, looks the situation over, and he puts a tennis ball with a lot of string on it down the sewer line at the station. He puts another one down at Sherman Clay, and they came together. He ties them together and pulls his wire through. So that was written in a fiction story at one time, but it's the truth. It's the absolute truth. And he put the program on, they couldn't find out where he's getting his line in. But he confused the competition. They didn't know what was going on. So we called that the remote line. He had another deal to Salem. He wanted a line down there to fit for the legislature. So his technician built, wasn't me, another guy, built 2 low-powered transmitters. And they put the signal on down there by induction. They coupled it to the railroad line, Western Union line. No direct connection, but they put it on inductively. They did the same thing up here in Portland. And they worked all through the legislature, back and forth. Never paid a cent for a line run. He used to laugh about that to us, you know, and say, those so-and-sos don't know what we're doing.
Can I ask a question, Cliff? You're referring to these lines. Now, to me, I don't know what you mean, what lines?
Lines, a pair of lines that carries the message, the program.
Oh, I see.
I'm
The input lines.
Yes,
Okay.
it worked perfectly. Once in a while you'd hear grr, grr, and it was a call signal on the Western Union. And never interfered with them, they never knew. KXL had another program. They had lots of good programs. They're a good station. Harry, I don't know how he did financially, but I thought it was a good station. He had a program they called The Great Mystic, came on in the evening. And this fellow was one of these see all, know all, tell all. Got a ball and something over his head. He'd answer questions that the listeners would call in. He'd always leave himself an opening, but the fellows wondered if he's going to get in trouble. But he seemed to get along all right. He was a happy-go-lucky guy. They liked him. And he drove a new Packard, so they figured he must be doing all right. But one night, an elderly lady called him and said her granddaughter was missing. She'd been gone 2 or 3 weeks, and they'd done everything. They'd notified the police, and they'd contacted all her friends, and he asked her a bunch of questions. Finally, he said, well, what do they call this girl? Not her name, but her nickname. So he said, they call her Pat. Or she did, the lady, her grandmother. And she said, the family's devastated. They just lost, so I came to you for help. So he looks in his ball and he said, well, what color's her hair? Oh, yes, he said, I see now, something colored her hair. And he'd ask her another question. What color are her eyes? Yes, he said, it's coming real plain. And he said, you go up to such and such an address in downtown Seattle, and you'll find her. So the folks went up there, but in a few days they come into the station just raising the dickens. They're going to sue the place. They're going to sue the Great Mystic. They brought a fellow from the Better Business Bureau with them. And he raised Cain too. They went up there, and the people at that address had never heard of her, knew nothing about her. So the mystic says, well, there's some mistake. He said, this is terrible. He said, there's some mistake here. He said, you sure you went to the right place? Oh, yeah, we're sure. And the Better Businessman said that they'd probably make a complaint against the station. And I got the manager out and had a big time there. Finally, he says, well, the Great Mystic says, I'll take you to Seattle. You come in my car, you'll be comfortable. And we'll try to straighten it out. So he finally talked him into going early the next morning. So they went to Seattle. That evening they were back with the girl. So the manager said they apologized to the Great Mystic, and they apologized to the station and told them they were sorry they caused all this trouble. So the manager had to find out. He got the Great Mystic aside. No, he got the old man aside. He said, well, what happened here? Well, he said, we went up there to this address, and he told us to stay in the car, and he went in. Pretty soon he come out and he says, we got to go down the street a ways. Went down there, and he said he was gone in that house about half an hour. He said he come out with the girl. He says, I don't know what happened. So we all came home happy. Of course, you know what happened. What she was doing up there. I'm gonna have to tell you. She went up there as a prostitute, and this mystic was one of her customers. What do you think of that, Ed? It's been a lot of fun researching and broadcasting. I started about, I don't know, 20 years ago, we'll say, going around contacting the owners of the old stations. And I was pretty late because a lot of them had passed away. And some more of them passed away before I could get to them, of course. But I'd heard the station in 1922, late at night, broadcasting a few records, and he'd announced A. McCoy, KAFHH, Nia Bay, Washington, Indian Reservation, something like that. So I kept wondering, what the heck's the Indians doing with the transmitter up there? I don't think he called it broadcast station. He just gave the call. The Indian nations weren't into radio at that time. So a few years ago, the wife and I were up north, and I thought, well, I'll go over to Nia Bay and see what I can find out about that mystery station I used to hear. So we pulled in those days, you know, there was no road into Nia Bay. Everything went in by boat, by ship. No roads at all. Not even a trail, I guess. So I went over, drove over to Nia Bay and thought, well, I'll look for the oldest person I can find. Maybe I can get a start there. So pretty soon this elderly Indian comes walking down the street. I thought, uh-oh, there he is. So when he got up the car, I said, hello, how are you? And he had a big smile, you know. Oh, he said, fine, how are you? And he talked fair English, but not too good. I could understand him all right. So finally I told him, I had a hard time explaining what I was doing on the research and broadcasting. And he laughed, he thought that was awful funny. I guess it was kind of funny. But I started by asking him, do you remember a broadcast station, a radio station in Nia Bay? Lots of wires and played the phonograph. No, I said, no. Oh yeah, I said, out on the point, out on the coast, lots of wires. There's sign language. So I knew right away that he was talking about the Navy station out there, the old Navy Spark. I said, no. Right here in Nia Bay. No, not Nia Bay. So then I said, I couldn't think of anything else. I asked him, I said, do you know the name McCoy? Does it mean anything to you? Oh, yeah, I said, him, you do this. So, yeah, I said, that's what I want. What do you know about that? Oh, he says, right over there, right there. I looked over there, I couldn't see nothing, sand and some piles. And he laughed, you know. I said, where? And he said, right over there. Oh, he says, him long gone. He said, burn up. So that's the way I found out about one station. He told me that it was in the cannery. The guy, McCoy, was the son of Senior McCoy in Seattle. The kid ran the cannery up there, and the old man was in the office in Seattle. So we finally got it out of the Indian. Well, another one that was interesting was a fellow named Vincent Kraft in Seattle, the founder of KJR. And I spent quite a while with him in his basement. He showed me the tools and his big table where he built KEX, KJR, KGA, and KY in San Francisco. He owned the whole works. He organized the net and went broke. So corporations finally got the stations. That's what happened there. He had been a school teacher in the Edison School in Seattle. He'd been a Navy operator at sea. He'd been an FCC inspector. And he was quite a sharp man, but I don't know, for some reason he went broke. And they were, that group of stations were among the first to get high power. Some of the first in the nation to really go high power. Ed was telling me about a later KGA, there was superpower. That came later. KEX, I remember he burned out a couple of tubes there. Burned out one, the Westinghouse company gave him a new one. They thought it was the tube's fault. He put it in, he burned it out, and they gave him another one. By that time, they all caught on that he was wrecking the tubes himself. C-bias or something on the tubes. Yeah, poor guy's gone. He was a real nice fellow, nice to talk to. But I guess he didn't succeed in business. Here's a station that you never hear of very often. I'll just read what I had written here. It was KYG here in Portland. Willard P. Hawley's station, KYG, was located at 400 East 22nd Street. The license with the call KYG was issued March 28th, 1922. 7XG was his experimental call before he went to the broadcast call. His station was a showplace. The guy had plenty of money behind him, and he had all kinds of pianos and sounding boards. Charlie Austin built the equipment. He put out a nice signal, but he didn't stay on the air very long. That was free broadcasting. I don't know where that location would be. 400 East 22nd Street. Maybe some of you know that area. That's where the station was located.
That'd be near Lone Cemetery, thanks.
Right.
It'd be right across from Lone Cemetery.
What year was that next?
1922. He was one of the first ones.
In 1933, they renumbered all of the blocks. I believe that address is in Irvington. I have a book on it. Maybe I could give you that.
Any questions anybody has, or does anybody have a question on what we went over?
KEX before the war had a wooden tower with 3 conductors going up the side, I believe, adjacent to KGW. Are you familiar with the station at that time?
Yes, that's later. The KEX,
They had a distinctive hum on the carrier. Always knew it was KEX.
a buzz.
Did you, sort of a buzz?
Right, right. The KEX that I talked about was out east where the Forest Service went in later. You know where that is?
Yeah, 122nd,
Yeah.
inside the Lisa.
Yeah, that's where KEX was.
Well, this time they were located in Delta Park.
Yes, I know where they were, yeah. Both stations were owned by the same people at that time.
See,
KEX changed hands.
KEX was the red network and KGW was the blue network, NBC, weren't they?
Right. KEX changed owners. What I think happened, I'm not sure. I think Westinghouse took it back from the defunct outfit, and Westinghouse ran it for a while. But they always had that annoying buzz. A lot of stations had problems like that. We had one at Hood River too. We finally got rid of it. It seems kind of crude, you know, the things we talk about, but that's the way it started.
You know, for years, KXL sounded like somebody was always talking inside of a pipe or something. Was that just the microphones they used?
Could have been.
They always had a
Could have been.
sound to it.
They were in the Multnomah Hotel a long time. It could have been the studio. I don't know. Reed was.
Or wait a minute, maybe I'm thinking of something different. The one down on the Oaks Park, they used to have KLIQ. Maybe you
Oh,
didn't know anything about that.
KWJJ was down in there someplace too one time. I don't know. You know, when Reed came to Portland to put in the station, we thought we were getting just the finest spot there was up on Sylvan Hill. And actually, it's a poor spot. KGW was smart. They went down on the wet ground, see? And there's not all the difference in the world. You go down to San Francisco and look at KEX sitting out there in the salt water, salt flats. But in those days, they thought they had to get up high. And they were far better off down the swamp. Propagation. I don't know whether they all knew or not. Well, I was going to mention something, I'll get it later. For a little nostalgia here, the announcers, lots of times are more popular than programs. Some of those announcers stood very high with the fans, real popular. They even had contests. I remember John Daggett at KHJ in Los Angeles won the first prize one time as a favorite announcer. But do any of you really remember how far back do you remember the stations? Probably not too far. I'll give you some of the slogans they used to use. KFI, Radio Central Superstation, Earl C. Anthony Incorporated, Los Angeles, California. KHJ, The Times, Los Angeles, California. KNX, Los Angeles Evening Express Station, the voice of Hollywood. Here you could hear Abe Lyman's orchestra in the Coconut Grove. KFSG, the Angelus Temple, Los Angeles. Here you could hear a sermon from Amy Semple McPherson. She disappeared in the beach and came up on the desert. You remember that? Remember that story? I don't intend to certainly make fun of any religion, but it's quite an interesting deal. She came out here with her mother from the east someplace, broke an old car, pulled into Los Angeles, started preaching a little bit, and they put her up a big, beautiful temple, Angelus Temple, out there in one of those parks. And she put in, all the money was rolled in, you know. She put in a 500-watt Western electric transmitter. And you could hear it up here any time of the night. It just pounded in her sermon. Her radio engineer was the radio editor of the Radio Doings magazine. His name was Kenneth Ormiston. These people are long gone, so I guess I can talk about them. But she really put a signal on the air. One day, she disappeared. The radio operator disappeared. And somebody had seen her down on the beach walking out too near the surf or near. Of course, they surmised right away that she'd gone into the deep. So they went down there by crowds. Hundreds of people went down there and stood looking out to sea, waiting for her to come back. Of course, Los Angeles is known, you know, for this kind of stuff. Well, you kind of get, people noticed that the police weren't out there. The police didn't go to the beach. They were downtown looking through the hotels. Then she appeared in the desert down south someplace, I forgot where. Anyway, out in the desert, bedraggled and torn, her clothes torn, and a real mess. She said she'd been kidnapped. Well, these nosy police, they found out that with her and the guy that looked like Ormiston had been in the hotel room all this time. So that was the end of poor Amy. They found her dead in a San Francisco hotel room, destitute. And she'd been really in the money. That's the story of KFSG. You had KPO, that was a wonderful station, I thought. KPO, Hale Brothers in the Chronicle. San Francisco, the city by the Golden Gate. That's now KNBC. KLX, the Tribune, Oakland, California, where land and water meet. KGO, Pacific Broadcasting Station, Oakland, California. Now, here's a good one. I can't imitate the announcer, but it's KGW, Portland, Oregon, the home of the Hoot Owls, and the local outlet for the NBC. Do you remember the voice of Dick Haller and their coast-to-coast broadcast on the NBC? Dick Juergens and his orchestra coming to you from the Golden Canopied Ballroom at Jansen Beach on the Columbia River in Portland, Oregon. Any idea ever hear that from KGW? No. That's the announcement they used on the NBC network. You probably remember the old ballroom at Jansen Beach, all draped golden. Willard Hawley, I read you the County Station. His announcement was, "Hello, all ships and stations." I think I've covered enough. Any questions? No, I think I'm a poor storyteller, but a gentleman here today asked me about arc and spark, and I wanted to find out the difference between arc and spark. There seems to be a lot of confusion nowadays. Here the last meeting, there was some bulletins on this table over here, and some guy wrote a story in there that the San Jose station used spark. It didn't count as a pioneer station because it used spark. Now you cannot modulate spark. Spark is AC. There's been stock promotions, and you've probably heard of some of those in the East. That doctor there at Elgin, Illinois, has got some of it. Goofy looking spark transmitters, and they sold, I don't know how much spark stock, but lots of stock. And you cannot modulate spark. And the spark is they put the high voltage on a couple of electrodes here. They strike them, they bring them together, separate them here at the proper distance. That's your spark. Usually very high voltage. Arc, A-R-C, is entirely different. It was invented by a fellow named Poulsen in Denmark. And it, of course, wasn't long till it put the spark out, and they're putting in high-power arc stations all over the Navy, Coast Guard, foreign countries. I mentioned in the story about Halleck and Watson that Joe Halleck was over in France putting in a big arc. Then he went to China and put him on. An arc has your spark gap, but it's a low voltage and it's contained in a tight container with hydrogen. It's in a hydrogen gas. And it generates direct current, not AC, direct current. And you can modulate it. So that's how Harold and some of these other people modulated an arc. It's an entirely different world. I guess that.
Hicks, do you have time to comment on Redford out of Seattle?
Redford? All I did was meet the man. I took my first examination from Redford, O.R. Redford. And I think he was suffering from something that morning because he's terribly nervous and cranky. He failed most of the applicants in there. But on the other hand, I knew fellows that had experience with him that did all right. I thought he was a good guy, so I don't know. Did you know something about him?
Well, I didn't know a lot about him. I know that on some of the early licenses that I have, Redford signed.
There was one before him that I can't remember his name. You see on some of them too. There's O.R. Redford. There's been a lot of inspectors here in Portland. Most of them real good guys. And Mac, you know, is a principal guy.
And Joe Gallup.
Joe Alec is another one. Joe would try to help you if you could. He's easygoing. Naturally, you were nervous. He'd try to calm you down and help you a little bit. Well, thank you for listening.
Yeah, anybody else has questions, come on up and talk to Tex. And if you have books that you want to buy them from maybe